I am Ditto, and I will. You probably said that I will be talking about like making art for programmers, basically, because that is what the talk is about. And as the presentation says, I'm Ditto. So, like during this talk, I will talk about consistency. I will try to explain kind of quickly what Wiggle is, the thing that I call Wiggle. I will be making a video game, adding graphics and stuff like step by step, and then explaining what is going on and why I'm adding stuff. And by the end of that, there's a bunch of scripting cheats that I do, since I'm not an artist, I'm a programmer. So I do a lot of my artistry through programming. So I will try to like walk through some very simple tricks that I do a lot. So like, who am I and what have I done? I was working on a game called Planeter that, for reasons I don't want to bring up, I am not working on anymore. And it kind of looks like this. I made a game called Hex, and it looks like this. And I'm now working on a game called Gunner that is looking like this. And like, as you can see, pretty much all my games are very simple, like simplistic. I'd like to say that I have an art style based on not being good at drawing. So instead of being good at drawing, I just add a bunch of stuff to the screen to make like as long as the screen is busy and a lot of things is happening at the same time on the screen, it becomes interesting, right? Like, it doesn't really matter if it's of high quality or whatever. So I think my art style is being kind of bad all the time on the whole screen, I guess. So like, this probably comes from, I make a lot of jam games in game jams, and usually in a game jam you have like 48 hours or something to make a full game. So you have to do the programming and the art and the sound and the game design and everything like in 48 hours. So you don't really have time to animate a lot of stuff, right? So you rush things and make things as quickly as you can, right? So animation, amazing, wow. And I mean, if you look at this stuff, like it probably took me 30 seconds to animate all of these things. And that is perfect, especially for like a game jam, and especially for programmers such as myself that can't animate. So like, if I make everything on the same level of crappy, then everything will sort of fit together, right? Like, hopefully, I don't know. And this is like a crash course in, because like you see that everything is moving all the time, and that is actually what I call Wiggle, so that's kind of dumb. And I made this rocket science time thing so that we can walk through what Wiggle actually is. So I just draw the same thing four times. So I drew that tree 4 times, and on top of each other to make it look like it's like wobbly, like super hard. All right. And there's kind of a point to that. Like, I was saying that I tried to make everything look as crappy as possible so that it all fits together. And if you look at this square that is now overlapping the text, it kind of looks like it's sort of out of place because it's like solid and it's too squarey and stuff. So like, try to keep everything on the same level of crappiness is my idea. So that is a perfect square, the one that is wobbling. Perfect. And same thing goes, like, you have the square that is like super low detail, whatever, and if you like add a good animation, like this is what I actually consider a good animation, by Izzy Grant for her game, and like, if you add a detailed animation like this to the scene where everything else looks like crap, then that will also look out of place, just like the square did. So like, there's a trick to actually being consistent with what you do and like keeping everything on the same level of crappiness. Video games. Whatever, let's make a video game. So I have a video game here, and you can jump and you can run, and there's not much to it. So like step by step I'm going to add a bunch of graphics, and hopefully we can make this look a bit more interesting, even though it's still going to be the same just jump game, whatever. So like setting, let's put this thing in a forest, right? Kind of simple, like you recognize the tree and there's like rocks and mushrooms and stuff. It's a forest. Wow. So like pretty much step one is colors. I love colors a lot, and I probably use them in all the wrong ways. And you can sort of see like everything is 100% saturation means that like all the colors are popping a lot, and they scream in your face with all of their colors. So there's like a trick that some people there's a trick that you can like, if you play around with the saturation, you can kind of make the colors look like they blend together more, just because they all become a bit grayish towards white, which means that since they all have some kind of common denominator, it will look like they fit together. But who cares about that? Let's keep the colors as screamy as they are, because colors. It's like step two is adding some variation to this, like simplistic scene. I think I'm actually gonna. So what happened here since the what happened here is I actually just like flip stuff around, scale it down and up and whatever, and move stuff around just to like make things look varied compared to the last slide. And this is my favorite technique of probably all techniques. Is like, can you notice how I put a layer of color on top of everything else, right? It's pretty much the same as desaturating colors, because if you desaturate, you can see that the colors kind of blend together, but it looks white and gray and boring. So instead I add a layer of color on top of everything else to make all the colors in the scene kind of blend together. And at least to me it looks kind of okay-ish. So that you can use pretty much any color and then just slap another color on top of it, and all the colors in the scene will sort of blend together and it will look better, just for that simple trick. Okay, so like step 5, it's alive. Wiggle that stuff. Like, this is probably the point where I think that this thing looks okay. Like, I love making stuff move, right? And if everything on the screen is moving at the same time, it doesn't really matter that everything looks like crap. Like, you have my trees that took 30 seconds to animate, and you have this guy that jumps around, and since everything looks kind of like crap, but since everything is moving at the same time, then you get this feeling that, oh man, this looks nice, even though it's not. And so at this point, I'm just adding some details to like further take this argument further. That like if you just add some details, even though it's all like really low detailed, it just looks more interesting. Like, look at that moon! Holy shit! Isn't that cute? Alright, so this is kind of the point where I feel happy with the art, so I will stop, I will start cheating with some programming instead. And I just made the start move because like that was a simple trick, and it's kind of interesting, right? I think. So at this point I will try to like quickly show some very simple code and explain what is going on. So like on every star in the scene, I put this. So vector 2 is like the position for the screen for the star. I'm sorry. And you have this sine and this cosine thing that you feed with time, and so you make the star just move in a circle depending on time. And since every star is like moving, it feels like the whole thing just came alive a bit more than it was on the last screen. I'm now like pushing the trees around, and you can also see the grass is kind of moving, and that's kind of like cute. Like, if you ever played Assassin's Creed, they use pretty much the same technique to make their grass move like this. True fact. And like, I do this wobbling thing like super simply by setting the rotation of the things that I'm colliding with. So like every time you walk into a tree or a piece of grass or something, I set the rotation. So like, so like you have this sine curve that you feed with time, right? Which would make the tree wobble all the time, like this. So every time you collide with something, you set the wiggle float, which is like just a counter. So every time you collide with something, you set that to a higher number, like 1 or something, which makes the tree wiggle. And you then make wiggle walk towards 0, which means that the tree will stop wiggling. So like you can see that they wobble around for a little bit and then they stop. Because wiggle is walking towards 0 with the whole like times 0.95. My next trick is that I usually stretch my sprites a lot. Like if you just look at that. Like if you compare that to this, it's kind of a simple trick to just like make the sprite stretch a bit to make it come alive a bit more. So like every time I jump, I stretch the sprite by like pulling it upwards and then squeezing it together so that it looks like it like does a movement more than it did before. And it's kind of simple because it makes it look as if I have more animation than I actually do. You can kind of see his reaction when he turns and stuff and like jumping and stuff. So it comes alive more. And that's also quite simple. So you have the scale of the sprite, right? And you just lerp that towards 1. So you want the scale to be 1, so you lerp both x and y of the scale towards 1, which then looks like this, because you have like lerping it is just a way of making the variable walk towards that 1. So at this point I'm like, okay, sure, I'll add some outlines that makes the scene look nice. And I mean, this is also like a programming trick rather than an animating trick, I guess. And I do outlines in the most stupid way you could ever imagine. So like I draw every sprite 8 times, or like. Does this explain what is going on at all? I'm so unsure of this slide, but I thought it looked cool, so I kept it anyway. So like, if you have a sprite and you draw it like 8 times, but offset it a bit, then it will look like it has an outline, and that's kind of cool. Like, super simple technique to make outlines that looks like you. It looks like you know shaders or something, but you don't. So that's cool. Yeah, and at this point I was like, yeah, sure, why fucking screen shake? Yeah. Look at that. No. Maybe not for this game. But apart from that, like that is like all the tricks that I use basically, and if you just like. If you just use very simple tricks but add a lot of them, like if you look at this scene, look at the movements and look how alive it feels. Like wow, and compared with this, Jesus Christ, wow, Jesus. Like even though it's really simple techniques, you can kind of make something look interesting. And like if you should always have screen shake though. And that is the end of my rant, I think.
кого-то есть вопросы, Матиас, пожалуйста, задавайте. На английском языке.
When you do the outlining, you need to render every sprite several times. Doesn't it go heavy on the rendering?
Yeah, it really does.
Is there some other technique to make outlining without?
Yeah, sure. Like it would be much better to use like a simple shader or something to actually draw outlines instead of drawing the sprite, because as you said, like I draw 8 times as much sprites just to have the outline. It works really well for a simple game like this, since I don't really have that much going on in the scene anyway. Like it's perfectly okay. And the thing is, like if I knew shaders, I would probably use shader instead, but I don't. And instead of learning stuff, I'd rather use simple techniques for it if I can.
That makes it worse.
Yeah, no problem.
You said that you make a lot of game jams. So do you consider each game that you make it into the full game because you make it in a couple of hours or like one day? And do you think that you can divide more time to it to make it a full-fledged game?
So like for every game, I think the beauty of making something really quick is you can kind of see after just 2 days, like, does this work? Is this worth, working on for half a year more or something? And sometimes the answer is just no, and then you can put it down, but then you only wasted like 2 days instead of half a year before you actually know, is this going to be fun or not? So like, I think it's a very good way to find out if the idea that you have is good, to just jam it and create it in 2 days to see if there's some kind of potential to be something good in there. Does that answer? Oh?
Yeah, more or less answer that.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 questions. First question is, what tools you use for drawing these sprites? Like, how do you draw them?
I'm using a software called Graphics Gale. I can just bring that up super quickly. It's a software called Graphics Gale that is basically Paint with animation help in it.
You use mouse or some?
Yeah.
Just a mouse?
Yeah.
And another question is, I would like to see more of your games, but this probably can be done on the internet. But if you can show now, I think everyone will be interested to see more of your games. Thanks.
Thank you. Cool. Shameless. Any more questions?
Кто-то еще хочет задать вопрос? Давайте еще один вопрос.
Did you try to make games?
Huh? No, I didn't. This is the point where you realize that it's really hard to talk to people at the same time as you're playing games. No, I have been. I have a background in computer science, and so I made some 3D engines and stuff. But I quickly realized that no, I kind of hate 3D, so I do everything in 2D instead. I hope that was a question. All right. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ditto.
Cool. Thank you.